You ever get the feeling life's about to punch you in the gut, but it hasn't balled the fist yet? That was me the morning everything started to unravel, though I didn't know it then. I was sipping coffee out of a chipped mug that said number one husband, which was ironic in the cruelest kind of way, while my wife, Mara, stormed around the house like a military parade. Perfume in the air, boots clicking on tile, voice just a little too sweet to be sincere. "Do you need the car today?" she asked, keys spinning on her finger like they were loaded dice. Now here's the thing. We have two cars. Mine, a rust-speckled Ford that complains every time it starts, and hers, a sleek little Audi she surprised herself with after getting her promotion last year. She rarely asked about mine. "Nope, all yours," I replied, still half asleep, eyes following her movements like a man trying to read the weather from cloud patterns. She smiled too wide. "Great. I'm just meeting Jenna for lunch." "You remember Jenna, right?" I nodded. Jenna was the friend who existed only when Mara needed an excuse. She was the human version of, "It's not you, it's me." She pecked me on the cheek, again, too light, like I was made of glass or guilt. "Love you," she called as she walked out the door. The moment it shut, I felt something. Not pain, not even suspicion yet. Just air pressure, like the house exhaled with her gone. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of the end. Not a bomb, not a scream. Just a Wednesday morning that tasted like burnt toast and felt off. Funny how betrayal doesn't always show up with a siren. Sometimes it smells like someone else's cologne on leather seats. Saturday came like it always did, slow, quiet, with just enough time to notice what you usually ignore. Mara had left early, saying she needed to pick up supplies for her work retreat. I offered to go with her. She laughed. "You'd be bored out of your mind." I wasn't so sure about that. Lately, bored sounded like a step up from suspicious. So I did what husbands do when they've got too much time and not enough trust. I decided to clean her car. Petty? Maybe. But something about that Audi had started whispering to me. She rarely let me touch it. Said it was her space. That was fine, until it wasn't. Until her space started smelling like another man's cologne. The moment I opened the door, it hit me. Not her usual vanilla body spray. No, this was something else. Musky. Bold. The kind of scent worn by men who don't ask permission. I leaned in. The seat was pushed way back. Too far for her. Now, Mara's 5 feet 5 inches in heels and barely reaches the pedals unless she's hugging the steering wheel. So tell me why the seat was adjusted like it was accommodating LeBron James? I slid into the driver's seat and felt like I was trespassing. Like someone else had been sitting here. Someone taller. Someone comfortable. I stared at the rearview mirror, not for my reflection, but as whoever he wasn't a ghost. That cologne didn't come from the dealership. And that seat? It had stories I hadn't been told. I didn't scream. Didn't panic. Just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead, like I was driving full speed into something I couldn't yet see. Because deep down, I knew. The car wasn't the only thing that had been moved. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't knock. It just walks in, helps itself to a drink, and puts its feet up on your life. After the seat debacle, I didn't sleep much. Just laid there in bed next to Mara, pretending not to notice how she faced away like it was her spine's job to avoid me. But I wasn't angry yet. I was calculating. Monday morning, she left in a rush. Hair done. Lips perfect. Excuse rehearsed. Meeting with the vendors might run late. She always ran late. Lately, I just didn't believe it was for work. I waited an hour before taking her car out for a quick tire check. Except I wasn't checking the tires. I was checking the truth. The glove box gave me nothing. So did the console, unless you count a lip gloss I didn't recognize and a receipt from a cafe we'd never been to. 2 lattes. 1 croissant. Timestamped for Saturday morning. She said she was at yoga. Then I checked the back seat. That's when I found it. Tucked in the pocket behind the passenger seat. A man's bracelet. Leather. Worn. Stylish in that. I lift dumbbells and flirt with waitresses kind of way. I held it in my hand like it was radioactive. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew he existed. And I knew exactly what seat he sat in. When Mara came home that night, she kissed me with the confidence of someone who believed she'd covered her tracks. "How was your day?" she asked. I smiled. "Productive." "Yours?" She nodded. "Exhausting. Vendors are driving me nuts." "Oh," I said, slipping the bracelet onto the table between us like a chess move. "Did one of them leave this in your car?" That was the moment it happened. Her eyes flickered. Not long. Not dramatic. Just long enough for the truth to blink. Then came the lies. Smooth. Practiced. Insulting. Oh my God, that must be Jenna's. Her boyfriend probably left it when she borrowed the car last week. I stared at her quiet, because I already asked Jenna about that earlier. And Jenna? She doesn't have a boyfriend. She has a wife. And she drives a Prius. There's a particular silence that shows up between two people when one of them is lying and the other one knows it. It doesn't scream. It doesn't slam doors or throw plates. It just hums, like static before a storm. That's the silence Mara and I sat in after I dropped the bracelet on the kitchen table like a detonator. She stared at it like it might crawl off the granite on its own. Her fingers twitched. Then, like clockwork, her voice kicked into gear. Oh my God, that must be Jenna's. Her boyfriend probably left it when she borrowed the car last week. Her delivery was solid, measured, calm. If I hadn't already spoken to Jenna myself, I might have believed it. Except Jenna's boyfriend was fictional. And so was the story. I let it hang there a beat. Not too long. Just enough to give her a shot at digging herself deeper. You're telling me Jenna's imaginary boyfriend wears leather bracelets and rides in your car when you're not even in it? I asked, my tone casual. Almost amused. She blinked. Just once. Quick. Well, I mean, I don't know if she was with him when she borrowed it. I didn't exactly take attendance, Logan. There it was. The flippant sarcasm, her signature deflection. I nodded slowly, tapping my fingers on the table. My wedding band made soft little clicks against the surface. That detail felt important. Like it was reminding me I was still playing by rules she'd already shredded. I texted Jenna this morning, I said, keeping my voice steady. She told me she's never borrowed your car. Not once. In fact, she laughed and said, and I quote, Mara doesn't even like people breathing near her Audi. Mara's face didn't crumble. She didn't gasp, didn't cry, didn't confess. She just blinked again, the way a snake might blink before it strikes. Okay, she said carefully, adjusting her tone like a radio dial. Then I must be misremembering. Maybe it was someone else. A client, maybe. Oh, which client? She shrugged. I don't remember. I've been driving around a lot lately. I do client meetings constantly, Logan. You know that. That's when I realized something. She didn't care about the truth. She cared about the illusion of control. As long as she had an answer, any answer, she thought she could keep the mask on. I didn't raise my voice. That's not my style. When I stand, it's not to fight, it's to walk away or walk towards something better. But I didn't walk yet. Instead, I leaned in, elbows on the table, eyes locked with hers. I know you're cheating on me, I said. Not loud. Not angry. Just final. She froze. That was it. The moment. The blink turned into a pause. A hitch in her breathing. For the first time in weeks, I saw something real on her face. Fear. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that. I'm not saying it, I replied. I'm confirming it. I stood up, walked to the counter, and pulled out the folder I'd been building like a slow-motion case file. Photos. Receipts. A printout of a hotel confirmation. Even a still from the dash cam I'd installed last week. Yeah, that's right. I rigged it up low and tight, right under the seat. Legal? Barely. Necessary? Absolutely. She looked at it like it was a coffin. You've been spying on me, she said, voice rising. I smiled, that tight-lipped, tired smile you give when someone tries to play victim after getting caught mid-heist. Spying implies I didn't have a reason. This isn't paranoia. This is preservation. Logan, I can explain. No, I said, cutting her off. You had your chance to explain when I asked about the seat. When I asked about the cologne. When I asked why you smelled like a man who wasn't me. You chose lies. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Don't. I'm not here to beg for honesty from someone who already sold it. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't static. It was ash. She sat back down, slowly, like the gravity of it all had finally reached her. Her shoulders slumped. Her hands trembled slightly, the first crack in the armor. How long? I asked. She looked up at me, eyes glossy but not crying. For months. I nodded. Who? Her lips parted. Closed. Then, quietly, his name's Carter. Of course it was. Of course his name was Carter. Sounds like a man who vapes at the gym and wears loafers with no socks. Co-worker. I asked, though I already knew. Yes. Married. Divorced. 2 kids. A real winner, I thought. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension bleed out of me like steam from a kettle. Then I asked the final question. Why? Mara looked at me for a long time. Longer than she had in months. Maybe longer than she ever had. Then she gave me the only honest thing she'd offered all year. Because you're always steady, always calm, always safe. And I wanted something that made me feel alive again. Even if it was stupid, I didn't flinch. Alive doesn't have to mean reckless, I said. It can mean rebuilding, growing, trying. But you chose chaos. You invited it into our home, into our bed, and into the car I paid for. She winced. Not from the jab, from the truth. So what now? She asked. I walked past her. Opened the door to the guest room. You stay here tonight. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what happens next. And I closed the door behind me. Because forgiveness wasn't going to be handed out like a hotel mint. Not this time. You know what's funny? Not haha funny, the kind that curls in your gut like smoke. It's how people talk about closure like it's a gentle thing. A neat ending. A bow on a broken box. But the truth? Closure's not clean. It's not soft. It's surgical. I woke up the next morning feeling like a man who'd stepped outside of his own skin. Slept in the guest room, though sleep's a generous word. I mostly stared at the ceiling fan and thought about how long she'd been gone emotionally, physically, and how long I'd been pretending I didn't see it. Mara was still home. I could hear her moving around downstairs like it was any other day. Coffee brewing. Water running. A cabinet door clicking shut. She was still trying to live like this was a bad dream, like she could just wait it out and things would go back to how they were. But that's the difference between us. She tried to forget. I don't forget. I learn. I showered, shaved, and dressed in silence. Wore the shirt she used to like, dark blue, crisp collar, sleeves rolled just enough to say, I'm not breaking down. When I came downstairs, she was at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of coffee. One slid across to my side. I made it how you like it, she said, voice tentative. Thanks, I said, sitting down. I didn't touch it. We sat in that weird limbo, not quite war, not quite peace. She opened her mouth a few times like she wanted to speak, but didn't. That was fine by me. I wasn't here for a conversation. I reached into the folder and pulled out a few sheets of paper, printouts, emails, financial statements. I laid them out like I was presenting a business proposal. What's this? She asked. This, I said, is what I've been doing while you were busy feeling alive. She glanced down, frowning. Logan, I don't. You will, I said. You told me you wanted truth. Well, here's mine. Her eyes scanned the top sheet, a transfer of funds. From our joint account to mine. Clean. Quiet. Done yesterday morning. I moved half the savings, I said. You don't get more than that. Not after what you've done. Her eyes widened, and for a second, I saw the woman I used to know, the one who panicked when the power bill was late, who cried during Pixar movies, who used to dance in the kitchen in bare feet. But she wasn't here anymore. Not really. I didn't think we were at that point yet, she said quietly. I let that hang in the air. You cheated, I said. You lied. And then you lied again. If you didn't want to be at that point, maybe you shouldn't have driven us here. She nodded slowly. No tears. Not yet. I continued. Second page is a lawyer's contact. He's fair, efficient, and he doesn't drag things out unless provoked. You're filing. I'm starting the conversation, I said. You made your choices. I'm making mine. She picked up the papers like they might burn her fingers. I thought maybe we'd go to counseling. Counseling's for cracks. Not for craters, I said. You blew a hole in this marriage big enough to drive that Audi through sideways. The joke landed flat. Maybe it was more for me than her. I stood up. There's one more thing, I said. I need the truth about Carter. All of it. Now. She hesitated. Looked down. Bit her lip like the answers might be hiding there. Fine, she said. We met at a work seminar. He was charming. Persistent. It started with lunches, texts. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. Did it end? I don't know, she said. We haven't spoken since yesterday. Was it love? I asked, not because I cared, but because I needed to hear her say it. She shook her head. No. It was attention. Stupid, reckless attention. He made me feel noticed. I nodded. You know what else notices you? I said. Lasers on security cameras. Doesn't mean they love you. She winced. I took a breath. There's no revenge coming from me, I said. No yelling. No broken plates. But don't confuse my calm with kindness. I'm not staying. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Just silence. Again, I turned, grabbed my coat, and walked to the door. Before stepping out, I paused and looked back at her, sitting small in the chair, shoulders slumped. coffee gone cold in front of her. By the way, I added, the bracelet? I left it on your pillow. Thought you might want to return it. Or keep it. Up to you. Then I left. Not in a blaze of glory. Not with slammed doors or tears. Just a man finally walking out of a house that used to be home and no longer felt like his. You don't get to burn my house and then ask for warmth. That thought echoed in my head as I drove away from what used to be my home. My hands were steady on the wheel, my foot light on the gas, but inside, a man was drawing blueprints. Not for violence, not for chaos, for justice. And justice, when done right, doesn't yell. It whispers in paperwork and walks in heels through a courtroom. I parked at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac and stepped out in front of an old craftsman house, my friend Nathan's place. We go back 15 years. He'd once said, if you ever need to disappear for a bit, my guest room's yours. I never thought I'd take him up on it. He opened the door before I knocked. Logan. Nate. He looked at me for half a second and knew. You want coffee, a whiskey, or a lawyer? Lawyer, I said. And I wouldn't say no to the other two. We sat on his back porch, where the spring wind cut just enough to keep you awake. I laid it out. Not the sob story, just the facts. The seat pushed back. The cologne. The bracelet. The lie. The confirmation. The plan. You sure you want to do this clean? He asked, handing me a folder. No. Like, wreck his car, post the pictures kind of energy? I nodded. I want consequences, not handcuffs. Smart, he said. Cold. Focused, I corrected. I hired a lawyer that afternoon. A precise woman named Miranda who had the patience of a priest and the claws of a hawk. She'd handled half a dozen high-conflict divorces for people in our city, and she had one rule. Tell her everything. Even the parts that made you look weak. Especially those. So I did. I handed over photos, emails, the audio clip from the dash cam. I told her about the bracelet, the seat, the receipts, even the way Mara started dressing differently in the last few months. Not for me. Not for work. For him. Miranda made notes like a surgeon prepping for an operation. This is good, she said, not kindly, just professionally. Clean. Documented. No shouting matches. No violence. Judges like that. I asked what we were aiming for. She closed the folder and looked me in the eye. Everything you're legally owed. Plus a few things she won't see coming. I nodded. It was on. I didn't contact Mara for the next 2 weeks. Didn't respond to her texts. Didn't answer her calls. She messaged everything from, please just talk to me, to, I can't believe you're doing this, to, I think we're both overreacting. We. A nice little pronoun for betrayal. During those weeks, I worked quietly. I had the locks changed on the storage unit, the one I'd paid for, but she kept her old boxes in. I redirected my paycheck to a new account. I even found an apartment, small, clean, temporary. And then came Carter. I'd kept tabs on him. Didn't reach out, didn't threaten him, just watched. The guy was all abs and ego, the kind of man who smiles at his own reflection and takes phone calls on speaker in public. He worked at Mara's office, though he didn't work with her anymore. HR got involved after someone slipped an anonymous tip about workplace misconduct. That someone, by the way, was Miranda. Turns out, when you flirt your way into a woman's life, you probably shouldn't do it on company time. He got transferred to a different department, lower profile, less pay. Office Buzz said it wasn't disciplinary, which is corporate speak for absolutely disciplinary, but we're trying not to get sued. I never spoke to him. Didn't need to. Men like Carter don't worry about fire alarms until they see smoke. Then came mediation day. Mara walked in wearing that same perfume, the one that used to mean date night. Now it smelled like arrogance. She smiled when she saw me, like we were going to pretend none of this mattered, that we'd split the furniture, cry a little, maybe hug goodbye. She didn't realize she'd already lost. Miranda laid it out with the precision of a chess master. Itemized betrayals, bank activity, the hotel footage, the workplace conflict, and the fact that she had attempted to hide a few purchases, using the joint account to book Airbnb meetings and a few gift receipts she had filed under office supplies. The expression on Mara's face shifted from calm to confused to cornered. I thought we were doing this civilly. She snapped at me during a break. We are, I said. You just thought civil meant lenient. She looked down. You've turned into someone else. I shook my head. No, I'm still me. You just forgot who that was. We settled. Miranda got me everything she aimed for. Half the house sale, My full retirement untouched, and the Audi, yeah, that card signed over to me. I didn't want it. I sold it the next week and donated part of the money in her name to a charity that helps betrayed spouses. Petty? Maybe. But it's the kind of petty that heals. As for Carter, last I heard, he was dating someone else. Mara was bitter about it, naturally. The guy who made her feel alive couldn't even stick around for her breakdown. I moved on, but not like they show in movies. No beach walk, no mysterious new woman in my life, no teary confessions. Just slow, quiet recovery. Long drives with no destination. Getting used to silence that didn't feel like punishment. And one day, I sat in a coffee shop, looked at the window, and realized I felt peace. Not because I forgave her, but because I stopped waiting for her to regret it. When you go through something like this, the betrayal, the silence, the careful dismantling of a life you built, people expect you to spiral. Friends check in like you're some fragile vase on a high shelf. Family gives you space, but also side-eyes you at dinner like you're going to start crying into your mashed potatoes. I didn't spiral. I documented. I journaled. Not for therapy, but for record-keeping. When everything in your life gets blown up by a lie, there's a strange comfort in turning it into evidence. Every text from Mara after the settlement went into a folder. She had good days. She had bad days. I miss you, one day. You never fought for me, the next. Funny. I thought I had fought. I just didn't swing the way she expected. She started showing up places I went. The coffee shop I always hit on Saturdays. The gym. Even the bookstore she used to say was too dusty. She'd glance at me like we were in some indie film where love always wins, even after infidelity and contempt. She didn't know the ending had already been written. And it wasn't a love story. You'd think Carter was a closed chapter. He wasn't. A month after the settlement, I found a note on my windshield, tucked neatly under the wiper like a parking ticket from hell. Thought you'd enjoy knowing she still calls me. See, Carter, ladies and gentlemen. The guy who thinks rubbing salt in the wound is a personality trait. I didn't react. Not publicly. But I did make a call to an old college buddy who works in cybersecurity. By the end of the week, I had phone logs. Mara had been calling him. Not often. Just enough to tell me she hadn't hit bottom yet. Still holding onto the wreckage, hoping it'd float. She didn't know Carter was showing her texts to his buddies. I know because one of those buddies, a decent guy, apparently sent screenshots to a friend of a friend. Her messages weren't romantic. They were desperate. I think I made a mistake. Logan wasn't exciting, but he was real. Do you ever think about that weekend in Tahoe? I do. Please don't ignore me. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. Tired of carrying her shame like it was mine. And I finally dropped it. One night, I drove back to the old place. Not to see her, she'd moved out, thankfully, but to walk through the shell of it one last time. I had the real estate agent's blessing. The house was in escrow, set to close in a week. It was empty, but it still smelled faintly like her perfume. And underneath that, like cologne, that same scent from the car. I walked from room to room, touching nothing, just looking. The kitchen, where she used to sing while burning eggs. The hallway, where she once danced in socks with a glass of wine. The bedroom, where the bed had felt like mine, until it didn't. And then I reached the garage. There, on the wall, still hung the tennis rackets we hadn't used in over a year. Hers was missing a grip, something I'd meant to fix. Never got around to it. I laughed, just once. The dry kind. The kind that says, this wasn't all bad. Just enough of it was. I left the keys on the counter and shut the door behind me. I didn't look back. This isn't a movie. There's no montage of me dating again, laughing with friends over drinks, finding new love in the produce aisle. What there is revenge. Not with fists. Not with flame. But with finality. See, there was one thing left. The man Mara thought was her what if. The exciting chapter. The escape. Carter. He was up for a promotion at his company, the same company Mara once worked for. And guess who got a call from HR? A certain concerned former employee who shared a few private messages between Carter and Mara that occurred after HR had ordered them to cease all contact. I didn't even have to lie. Just faxed over the screenshots, anonymously, of course, through Miranda's office. 2 weeks later, Carter was quietly let go. Mara called me that night. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. I know it was you. I hope you're proud. I played it twice. Saved it. And then I deleted her number. Because yes, I was proud. Not because I ruined them, but because I ended it. Completely. Quietly. With dignity.